Happy Friday, Andy!
That's fantastic. Happy Friday. It's another Friday in another week.
Yeah, it's almost March.
I know.
Holy cannoli.
It has been warm the last couple of days.
Yeah, change the background light so it doesn't look like winter anymore.
Except for now it's going back to winter for a couple of days.
No,
Okay.
Nope.
I love at the end of February and March because you know that snow is not going to last forever. It's fantastically encouraging.
You can finally start to believe
Yes.
that it might not last forever.
In November when it starts snowing, you think this could be another 5 months.
I think the Snowvember year, the mountains that were in the parking lots were there till August.
There was a lot of snow.
You know those ice mountains they make when they plow?
Yep.
I think they literally were like there until August.
I think it could very well be. It
Yeah.
could be. But we've got.
Who wants to live here? Craziness.
We do.
Do we?
Yes.
All right, Mark 5.
Mark 5.
We did not finish the story.
We did not. That's probably my fault.
Poor Jarius. See, he just gets snubbed over and over again.
I know. If it's not by this,
He
it's
just
by
gets
us.
delayed, and Jesus is like, you can wait.
It's a really good story.
Jesus made a wait. We're making a wait.
All right.
This lady made a wait.
We made people wait to hear the rest of this.
Sorry, I'm cold and I'm tired. It's all these things that happen when we start recording.
That's exactly right. All right. Are you going to start?
Yes, so
All right.
Mark 5,
Yep.
verse 35.
Perfect.
While he yet spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, thy daughter is dead. Why trouble the master any further? As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he saith unto the ruler of the synagogue, be not afraid, only believe. Oh, I love that. Gonna get stuck. And he suffered no man to follow him, save Peter and James and John, and brother of James. Oh, I'm stuck there too. And he comes to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and seeth the tumult, and them that wept and wailed greatly. And when he was come in, he saith unto them, why make ye this ado, and weep? The damsel's not dead, but sleeping. And they laughed him to scorn. Stuck there too. This is going to be 5 videos. But when he had put them all out, he take the father, the mother of the damsel, and them that were with him, and entered in where the damsel was lying. He took the damsel by the hand, and said unto her, Talitha Kumai, is that her name? Is that all one word? I don't know. Mine doesn't break it up right.
Yeah.
Which is it being interpreted, damsel, I say unto you, thee arise. And straightway the damsel rose and walked, for she was of the age of 12. And they were astonished with a great astonishment. And he charged them straitly that no man should know it, and commanded that something should be given her to eat. Come back from the dead and have some food. That's what I would want. I'd be like, I'm alive. Give me a cake.
There you
Or
go.
something.
That's right. It
That's
makes
so
a lot of
funny.
sense.
Give her some food.
It takes a lot of energy work to be dead.
To be dead and then
Yes.
wake up.
That's right.
This whole thing.
There's a ton in this little tiny section.
How did you even let me go? I couldn't even do it.
Well, because I just figured that you were going to get stuck, and I was stuck on the first. I literally got stuck on the very first verse, partly because we've talked about it on Wednesday nights.
Yeah, don't bother.
Right? So,
They said she was dead.
Right. On Wednesday nights, we've talked about the book of Joshua. Right. And all week long, I've been on this whole kick about the very, like in verse 2 or 3 there, it says, God says to Joshua, my servant Moses is dead. Mm-hmm. Like definitive declaration of this is done, right? Moses is done. He's not coming back. And you brought up last night that, hey, Joshua might have had a reason to be concerned because Moses went up on a hilltop and didn't come back, right? So is he coming back? Is he going to come back at some point? What did God do with him, right? They didn't bury him. They didn't do all of that stuff, right? But when God declares something is dead, there's no bringing it back to life.
Well, no, because God doesn't change his mind.
Right, but until God declares something or someone dead, then there's a chance that God is not done, right? Yeah. So again, King David ran into the same thing when he was mourning his sick son, right? That God had declared was going to die. right? But David mourns and mourns and mourns, and he says at the end of this, listen, while he's alive, there's a chance God, right, would relent. God would change his mind. But once God says he's dead, he's not coming back. Right, I have to go to him, and so we look at this story, and I just was immediately drawn to that and saying, all right, people said that the child was dead.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between when man says something's dead and when God says something's dead.
Yeah, but this is another. We look at our earthly facts, right? We look at they're dead.
Yep.
Their heart's not beating.
Yep.
Dead. I don't know. I tried not to do this recently when people die.
It's true.
Actually, quite insistently tried not to do this when people die. I'm like, you called me to tell me one of them was dead.
Yeah. Yep.
And I said, nope. We'll just pray for her to get up. Mm-hmm. Like, that was it. Like, I was like, no. No, God does this. We can do this. He says that we can do this. So I'm like, no, I'm not taking that as the answer yet.
I think that
on the 4th day, maybe I'll believe it. Well, on the 5th day, maybe I'll believe it.
Because then...
But not today.
That is a time when God has declared that something is dead, right? Again, until God says to you and I, this is dead, right? So if that's a person... Right? It's funny how we just resign ourselves to things, right? We go into a hospital room, right? Our loved one is dying, right? They tell us that they're dying. And a doctor declares, right? Because the line goes like this. A doctor declares there's no more life in this person. They're dead, right? But there is a huge difference between the doctor declaring and God declaring.
Well, and is that because that whole hospital process, the whole process leading up to that was our attempt to keep them alive?
Yep, exactly.
It was man's attempt to keep them alive, man's attempt then to save them, man's failure at keeping them alive.
Yeah.
So then it's so do we not go to God at all because we killed it? No, I don't mean we killed it. You know what I mean?
Right. No.
Like we can't bring them back from the dead.
So
we can't.
Again, we look at this, and I love where you're going.
But we don't even go to God for it. Like, we go to God with everything else that we kill, right? We go to God with every other thing that we cannot master or fix or whatever as a person, because, we should always try it first. That's sarcasm. But then, when we run out of options, then we go to God. So why is this not running out of options and still going to God? Like, why are we not saying, God, bring them back from the dead?
Because there's some things that seem to have a finality, right? It's
but
funny
they don't.
Because we've ran into that recently with election stuff. We've ran into that with life stuff. We've ran into that with relationship stuff. We've ran into that with food things, right? It was funny because it was kicked into my mental gear. The other day we were listening to a lady who had just had a prophetic word about food and famine and shortage coming up.
Yeah.
And one of her things was, listen, we need to store up, no doubt about it. But at the same time, maybe we need to start thinking about food being multiplied as Jesus did. Right? Maybe we need to start praying over food and going, we believe it's going to be there.
Was that God told her to store up. See, I don't like when these people because that is so, like, misconstrued and misgiven by these people. Like, lots of people get words from God that something bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
God could even tell you famine is coming.
Uh-huh.
That doesn't mean he said stock up on food.
Right. Just tell you what's happening.
But she said that God said to store up on those things, right? And I believe that. God tells us to do certain things like that. But, it was her added thing there to say, like, hey, like, we can do what we think we can do, and we can do as much as we can, and God does provide for us, and God will take care of us. But, like, we also have to have faith, like, when things look bad.
Yep.
Like, it's going to look bad. There's going to be moments. But, like, we have to go to God first. Because what if you store up, but you didn't store up enough?
Well, exactly. And what if you store up things and mice get into it?
Now, I think if she does that, if she stores up like God told her to do, that's not a her trying to do it on her own. That's her doing something out of obedience.
Right, because we see that.
That's different.
We see that in the story of Joseph, right? God told through a dream, here's what you need to do, right? Like a famine's coming. Joseph tells, like, hey, here's my idea. Here's what I think you should do. And Pharaoh says, yeah, let's do it. But not everybody in Egypt started storing up grain, right? No, they started storing it up together, like he had told them that. So again, if God tells you specifically to do something, then you have to do it out of obedience, right? But in this story, the most important thing here is God didn't declare something's dead, right? Again, there's story after story, but in the story of Saul, King Saul, right? God declares that King Saul, he rips the kingdom away from King Saul. And Samuel is mourning Saul, right? And God says, how long are you going to mourn Saul? Right? How long are you going to mourn that which I have declared dead? I need you to get up and go to Jesse and anoint the next king.
Yeah.
Right? That's what this story is all about, right? God didn't declare this girl dead, right? God didn't declare. Jesus doesn't act like she's dead. That's important. But in the story we read, everybody else declares that she's dead, right? Now it's funny because we talk about that all the time. We talk about words and how we can declare things with words and how we can make things happen with words. But sometimes
No, you can't.
Sometimes we might declare things, right? And God says, yeah, no, that's not
Well,
it.
that's the thing, you can't. Like, that's so sticky.
Yep, it is.
Because, like, you can invoke things that, like, God, I don't know if that's the right word, but, like, your words have power because they show your heart.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, if you're declaring things, you could open a possibility for God to make them come true because you are, there is a difference between having a thought and then putting into action in word, right? Like we all have thoughts that we shouldn't have, or we're like words in our head that we shouldn't have, but then like they fall out of our mouths sometimes, and sometimes God's like, oh no, we need a lesson because you let that fall out of your mouth, right? The whole I'll never have kids like that, I'll never this, I'll never that, blah blah blah, and then oh really, okay, like we've seen that a lot. But if you're declaring something that's not in his will, not in his plan, it doesn't matter. You could say it all you want. You're not a mini God.
Right.
That power you don't have. He didn't say, I'm going to give you power to raise people from the dead and cast out demons and heal people. Oh, and make your own declarations as if they're the word of God.
Right.
He doesn't say that. So you can say all you want. You might get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Again,
and you might show your faith, but you're not recreating God's plan.
Now, Jesus sent the disciples out by twos with authority, right?
Yeah.
His authority.
Right.
In his
Through the Holy Spirit.
Right, and I think that's super important. I just think, again, there's somebody listening going, okay, you guys are going on and on and on. I think this is so important. There are so many things in life that we declare, let other people declare dead in our lives, right? Whether that's ministries, whether that's, us, giftings, talents, whether that's relationships, whether that's something happens and we declare it dead, right? And God says, no, but that's not dead, right? That's not, it's important because what do they say here at the end? They say that she's dead. Why trouble the teacher any further, right? Again,
let him go.
Don't waste Jesus' time anymore, right? So he doesn't need to come back here anymore. He doesn't need to do this. How often do we get to that point where we feel like, I'm not going to ask anymore, right?
We don't even think about the real life process here of like how ticked was Jairus about the woman who stopped him.
That's exactly right.
Like, my daughter wouldn't be dead if this woman didn't grab his cloak, right? All this stuff. Like, that's real life. Let's not play. That's exactly what was going through his mind. Like, wow, really? If we didn't, why would you stop? Like, why? Like, you were coming to save my daughter, and then you stopped, and this thing happened, and we had this whole thing, and now she's dead.
Yeah, so we know that that's a true statement that you just said because Mary and Martha say the same thing to Jesus about
Right.
Lazarus.
If you would have come, he'd be alive.
Our brother would be dead. Would be alive, right?
Right.
So
like, why did you do it?
So
well,
we know.
Of course, it feels that way.
Right, and again, we get to that point, right? But what does God want? Like, notice what Jesus says there, right?
Don't be afraid and believe.
Believe. Don't be afraid. Believe. Now, again, none of that was said, right, to Jesus. All of it was said in his hearing, because it says Jesus heard this, said to him, "Don't be afraid, only believe." Right? Like, this is what's important. So again, we've talked about this 100,000 times in the last probably 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Like, I mean, just day after day, multiple times a day. When God gives someone a vision, right? When God gives somebody a mission of what he's doing, right? It is amazing how quickly the enemy comes against that, right? Because he wants us to believe that there's something that we can do to ruin it. There's something that we can do to somehow keep it from happening. Jesus is going to take it away from us, right? Now, again, I believe that there are things we can do to prolong stuff, right? But when God gives us something, when it does not say, "Hey, my purposes and plans change minute to minute depending upon your obedience," right? Every person that was given a mission in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, there's a lifelong mission, right? Things that they did within that affected how the mission went and how long it took and all of these things.
Might not even be as good as it would have been.
Exactly. But
you'll get it.
But the mission doesn't go away. And so when God puts something in you, the number one way the enemy is going to attack is to try to convince you you've lost it, you're going to lose it, right? That there's a possibility that somewhere along the line you can lose it. He's going to try to do that because what you and I focus on, right, is way more about loss. But he wants us to focus on losing something rather than having something. Imagine that, like, initially, what is Jairus' whole focus on? My daughter, I need to save her. I need to get her fixed. Somebody comes and says, "Hey, she's dead," and immediately your focus is going to change to, I don't need Jesus anymore. The mission's done, right? Everything about this is done. I'm done with this whole thing. And that's where the enemy wants us. And then we have to hear Jesus' words, which is, no. Your mission isn't done, right? Just believe that I'm not going to let this end like this, right? That goes back full circle to your whole thing about when we've heard that some people have died, right? This is where you insert this, right? No. Believe that God can do more, right? Again, whether God decides to do more or not, it's not about whether God would do it. It's could he do it, right? We've made videos on that, right? Because we've ran into this where people just want to, there's just things in their head they can't believe God would do. Sure, he probably wouldn't do those things. That's not the question. The question is, could he revive your relationship? Could he save your job? Could he heal you from sickness? Could he do all of these things? Could he raise you from the dead? And the answer to that question is yes, he could. Now the real question then turns to, will he?
Well, will he do it? No, he wouldn't.
That's right. And that's where
he wouldn't.
Right. So we go to work, we get the pink slip, and we just, like, it's finality. You're never going to get that job back. Right? So on our way out, we say all kinds of mean things and terrible things, and we do all the bad things, right? And we steal things and drop off things and do all this stuff because we assume it's finality. But what if that pink slip was for a moment and God said, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you your job back. Because that just happens to be over and over in the Old Testament, right? What if I give it back? Even Nebuchadnezzar lost his job as king for 7 years and then got it back.
That's crazy.
Right. So what if God decides to do that? All right. That's where I got stuck, but you got stuck many times after that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So next verse.
Yeah.
He suffered no man to follow him but Peter, James, and John. I love that.
So
who are they?
So those are three of his inner circle that
His favorite.
had zero problem believing. They had zero problem with their faith. They had zero problem with their humility.
Okay, no.
That's not why he chose them?
Nobody has zero problem.
Oh, wait. Peter, James, and John are the only disciples, other than Judas pointed out, to have a bunch of problems. And Jesus took them with him.
Yeah.
Why?
You know, it's super important. Like, I think about, like, all these instances. Like, Jesus obviously did miracles amongst non-believers and amongst, like, all sorts of people.
Yeah.
Right? But, like, it super matters when you do these things. Like, there are some specific circumstances, right, where he goes to do things and there's only certain people around. Or you go back to the Shulamite woman with the dead son.
Yeah.
And she goes to get the man of faith, and like he's the only one in the room, right? And it's like they're like people are kicked out of the room, right? Like the people who laughed and the people that were just like, he's dead, she's dead, they were all kicked out.
Yeah.
Right? He kicked them out, and it was just like the parents and these guys, and it's very interesting to me, like how those people are chosen. And it's, to me, the people that I would have in the room would be the people, two types of people, I would say. One would be the people who had enough faith to agree with me in prayer that the person was coming back to life.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Not that Jesus needs help. But he's setting an example here, isn't he? Because did he need to take anyone?
No.
No. So one would be the people that would help, right? And really believe that she's getting up.
Right. Because that was the idea.
Really want it.
Yep.
Right? Believe it. Aren't going to laugh. And the other would be the one that's got like just a little bit less faith, enough that they need to see firsthand miracle.
Yep.
Like up close, but in not the large crowd. Like they were in the crowd. They just saw the lady with the blood. Right? But like maybe they needed to be involved. You know, like maybe they needed to be part of it. Maybe they needed to see and realize like what they were going to be doing. Right? Like here's what you need to do.
Right.
Like, because this is active healing. The lady in the crowd was passive healing.
Yep.
Right? Like, she came to him. This was Jesus going to her. And he's performing this, right? There's no ritual. He just says, get up. Right? But what does he really say? Yeah, arise. Same thing. Get up. Right? So, like, I don't know. I think it's, and I don't know. I'm not God, and I don't know exactly. But, like, it makes sense for all of those things. You know, like it's a teaching moment. It's a faith growing moment. It's a belief moment. What am I missing?
I don't think you're missing anything. I think all of that is spot on.
But it's guys that aren't going to laugh at him.
It's those.
It's guys that aren't doubting.
You said it right from the very beginning. It was those three that were closest to him.
Right.
So in this moment, in a moment of this magnitude, right? He surrounds him by his three closest friends, right? It's funny.
And you think about later, what these guys are going to do later, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it matters, right? There's going to be some that are going to do more later. Yeah, they're going to screw up, but duh. They all screw up.
I think that happens over and over, you know, in all of the king stories that I love, the medieval stories, right? In all of the even the Bible stories here, right? The king, when he's in dire need, right? When there's a big job, you take the closest people to you, the ones you know you can count on, the ones that you've seen, you've done battle with, right? So I love what you said. There's a need sometimes for us to take some people maybe who don't, so they can see things and they can experience things.
Well, it's like, you know, there's the people that like they really want to believe it, but they've never seen anything like it. You know, obviously they've been with him, they've seen crazy things. I don't know if at this point they've seen someone risen from the dead.
It depends on which version you're reading.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where
I
you
don't
are in
know
the
if they have or they
chronology.
haven't or what. But like that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right?
It's humongous
And this
deal.
isn't like, 2022 where you can go on the internet and Google every 5 minutes that someone comes back from the dead and we've got all these medical things to do. Like, people coming back from the dead is a big deal. People are dead. They're dead. We think it's permanent. Like, and them coming back is a very big deal. So, maybe they were like on that hairline teetering, like we just need to see it, right? Like we just need to see a little more. And I mean, it sets up the future for what he's going to do too, right? Because he says, I'm going to come back. I'm going to die and I'm going to come back. And they're just like, what? Like, what? How's that? So, like, if they see that over and over, like, and then it's like, okay, well, yeah, well, of course he's going to die and come back because look.
We've seen it.
Right, we know. We believe it. We've been part of it.
See,
We've been in the room. We know it.
That's such an important concept, right? We've been part of it, right? Again, you and I and others talk all the time about healing, deliverance in this area. And one of the things that we consistently say is we haven't seen it, right?
No.
We haven't been in these services where we've seen people dramatically healed, right? We've seen healings in ways that like people who are sick get on sick and all of those kind of things. But
I've never seen an arm grow back.
Right, we've never seen
Right.
people with broken legs all of a sudden healed and all of that kind of stuff. Yet we hear those stories all over the place.
I believe it though.
Right, absolutely. But how much more, right, for what's upcoming, for what God's going to do in these last days, for us to experience some of those things, right? Why? Because then it motivates our faith. Like, can you think of Peter? Like, he's got experiences that are incredible. I walked on water, right? I've
For a minute.
I've seen people that were dead, declared dead. I've seen them alive again, right?
Yeah.
I've seen healings.
Well, that's how you can go when Jesus is gone, not dead, but gone, and put your head on a chopping block and be so passionate about what you're preaching to these people when he's not there anymore because you know it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like, but I don't know. I think it is. See, this is. I think. I don't know. This is tough because I could play both sides of this coin, where I'm thinking like, faith is supposed to be about things not seen, right? And then it's like, okay, but like we're showing them, and it's like almost like a hindrance to them, right? Because then they see it. But then how much greater is the faith of the people who don't see it? Like, it's just there's so many ways you could look at this, but I don't know. God knows what he's doing. So.
Well, he does it. We talk about that all the time.
How cool would it have been to be with Jesus? Like, I don't know.
It would have been super cool.
And super stressful all the time.
We talk about that with the Israelites, right? When they get to the Red Sea, God says, stretch out your hands, Moses, part the sea, I'm going to bring you through, right? And he does. And it happens, right? And then imagine that, because we would think from that moment on, the Israelites had all the faith that they needed.
Yeah.
They've seen it work. But
you saw the ocean split apart.
But we look and goes, no. I mean, there's just constant. No water, no food, no all of these things. When it gets to the Jordan, God says to Joshua, when you put your feet in, it will split up. Now that's where the faith kicks in. So sometimes God says, this is a faith building moment, right?
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes God says, this is to decide whether you have faith, right? This is to show me that you do have the faith.
Well, notice it gets a lot bolder the further you go.
Yeah.
A lot more scary.
Yep, it's exactly right.
Step in the water now. I'm not going to show you I'm going to part it.
Right.
You get in it.
So, by the way, lead all these people to a water that's not wide open, right? Which is where they were, 40 years ago. Now we're at a point where, no, these people are going to see my power by this happening. It was the same thing that God tried to do through Moses. Hit the rock, Moses. Okay, water came out. This time, Moses, just talk to the rock. And what did Moses do? No, let's do it the way we did it last time. Right? And he's angry and he's upset with the people. He's mad because they're asking him for water. And he hits the rock. And God says, yeah, no, that's not the way it was supposed to be. Right? He was gracious. He brought water out of it. Right? But it's not what he wanted. What he wanted was Moses just to talk to it. Right? So there's times where God says, I need to increase your faith here. Let's go through this together. And then there's times where God says, you need to show me your faith has been increased, right? That happens with Peter, right? He's having these moments where his faith is getting increased, and then we know all of a sudden he's going to get moments where he has to show that his faith has been increased.
Yeah.
Right? So I love what you're saying here. This is a huge moment for James and John and Peter, right? Why the rest of them weren't there, God didn't tell us. There's certain works created for certain people, certain moments for certain people, right? I hate almost every time I'm not at a Wednesday night or a church service at church or down here for something, all I hear is these great reports of here's what happened, here's what happened, here's what happened.
I know how that feels.
Yeah, and you get immediately jealous and immediately like, oh, God, what are you doing? And then you realize, no, God knew I was going to be
Not for
away.
me.
Yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah.
I find the next verse super fascinating.
And he came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and saw the tumult and them that wept and wailed greatly.
Okay, so again, I find this fascinating because how many times does Jesus come upon that in my life? He comes upon the scene of just great commotion, wailing,
Tantrum?
scream. Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, I know you use that word because you're talking about me.
No.
Tantrums, right? Yes, we're throwing a fit, right? The world is ending. Ah, right? Again, all of these people are acting as if something has finality, right? So how convicting is that? Because in my life, I'm constantly treating each moment as if there's some finality in the moment, right? Oh, the world is ending in this moment.
Yeah.
Oh, the world is ending in this moment or this moment or this moment, right? And you can see Jesus walking into all of this commotion, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing because he does the same thing in our lives. He walks into the commotion, right? And like, imagine what he's thinking in that moment. Like, you have the power of God at your disposal, right?
Yeah.
You are a child of the living God, right? You have all of these opportunities, all of these things, and you're choosing commotion, wailing, right? Chaos, this is what you're choosing for this moment. And we're to be different. We're to look different. We're to be different. We're to act different. We're to sound different. But how many times do we act just like this?
Well, they thought someone was dead.
Because they thought something was dead.
Crazier part to me is that he walks in, says, "Why are you making this ado and weeping? The damsel's not dead and sleeping." And they laughed at him. Like, they broke out of their sadness to laugh. Like, that is such an extreme. Like, I've been in this situation where I'm crying over someone being dead, right?
Yep.
And if God spoke to me in that moment and said, they're just sleeping, I would spring up in such like joy, and I would be praying for them to get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, right? I'd be like, yes, like hallelujah. Laughing, like I can't even, I don't know, maybe they didn't know who he was.
So there's several things in
Maybe
there.
they didn't know who he was.
So that's part of it, right? That is truth. That they didn't know who he was necessarily, but they knew he had been called for healing, right? So there's a funny thing, because I think that I'm this way. God, I believe you can do it this far, but then not this far, right? So these people called Jesus to come and heal her, but once she's declared dead, he can't do anything for them. Right? It goes back to that. So you want God to be a part of your job, in your relationships, and all these things, right?
To this point.
But once some human being gives you want God to do the miraculous in it, but once some human being gives you a pink slip, all of a sudden God's not powerful enough. Well, what are you asking for? Wow. I mean, if that person is the most powerful person in your universe and he can control all of that, why are you asking Jesus for help anyway?
Yeah, why don't you just go to that person?
That's my question. Why did you call Jesus anyway if you believed that there was something he couldn't do, right? I love that you said that. I tie in the laughing always here to Sarah.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Sarah's being told that she's going to have a child, and she just laughs, right? In my old age, am I going to be blessed, right? There's this sense of finality. My body can no longer have children. And now you're going to tell me I'm going to have a child?
Yeah, like it's a mean joke.
Like it is a mean joke, right? But again, we don't know what that means, right? And again, we read that, we try to put human thought to it. We're like, well, in today's world it means adoption, or it means foster care, it means this or this or this or this. We don't know what it means.
I think he said bear a son.
He did, right?
So a little specific.
But how do we hold on to the promises? How do we cling to those promises when there seems to be this finality of death, right? But it's funny how quickly our mourning goes to laughing in unbelief.
Right. Yeah. That I don't get that.
No.
The only pass I could give him is, they didn't know who he was. Because if you knew who he was, then nope.
But again, maybe it's because of the wording here. What does Jesus say? She's not dead. She's sleeping.
Yeah.
Right. So again, maybe are we declaring things are dead that aren't dead? They're sleeping. Maybe your job's not dead. Maybe it's just
Dormant.
sleeping. Right. Maybe the person isn't dead. Maybe they're just sleeping for a minute. Right. Maybe
their heart needed a break.
Maybe God had something to say to them.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe God's
we don't think about that.
The only way that I can meet with you face to face at this moment
is if I bring you up here.
Is if you come up here. And imagine that. Imagine if God...
That happens.
And does God love you
Or I
enough?
take you down there.
Yeah, that's right. Or what if I show you what the other side looks like? Right? What if I show you where your eternal future... what would happen? Mm-hmm. But again, these people chose to laugh at their Creator.
Yeah.
Right? Again, we're all high and pious, and we would never do that if we were there. No, I've been in a state of mourning where you're irrational. Right? You're just not thinking straight. All right? So that if someone like yourself came in and said, "No, listen, you gotta join with me, pray that they're not dead, that they're just sleeping," what are we gonna do? We're gonna react.
I've done that, and I've been nervous about what I've done it anyway, but
mm-hmm.
I thought are these people gonna be mad at me for saying this?
Yeah.
For false hope, right? Is that how they're going to look at it? Are they gonna be angry?
Yeah.
Then I just won't accept that they're dead.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Somebody did say to me, "Just let it go."
Yeah.
Okay, well, no, thanks. Mm-hmm. But they look at you like you're a psycho, like you're in denial. you're just this is unhealthy, Summer.
Yeah. Well, while they're irrational
Unhealthy.
until the person dies, and that's not unhealthy.
Right.
Right? Again, these are tough.
It's almost like they want them to be dead.
Well,
because, they're better off.
We understand finality. There's nothing more that we can do. It's that whole thing that
But they didn't really try to begin with.
No, they didn't. But does it surprise us if they didn't have faith on the front side? How are they going to have faith on the back side?
No. But
right?
That's why I said I did it anyway.
But we have these nice little compartmentalized God things. It was God's will.
Yeah. And they're in a better place.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure?
And again,
are you sure?
It makes us feel better about the finality. What happens when God says no and he actually means no? Right? What happens when God says it's finished and it's actually finished? Right? Again, there's all kinds of purposes. Jesus from the cross said it's finished, meaning his earthly work was done. But he certainly wasn't finished. God brought him back from the dead, right? And continued on with God's plan, right? There are moments where a section of time is finished, it's done. It's funny because I've thought about this in my weird thoughts. If a person lives, right, and they live until 12 o'clock, right, on a certain day, and then they die, and they're dead until 12:05, but then they come back to life, what happens with that 5 minutes? Do we have to go back and say they lived 50 years and then another 3 years, or can they continually lived? Because they didn't continually live. There's a 5-minute break in between.
Is there a comma on their gravestone?
Exactly. 1901 to 1940.
1901 April 4th, 12 p.m.
Yeah, but I mean, really, how do we this person did not continuously live?
Oh, that's kind of, I don't know. Who cares?
I care. See, I care about it from the standpoint of, I think that God does that to you and I at times. I think God says, Andy, here's the season. The season went until 12 o'clock.
It's over.
And from 12 to 12:05, I let you lay dormant. Right? I gave you a break. And that's a season all in itself, right? 5 minutes. But at 12:05, I woke you up again, and I decided to do something new with you. Right? Is that important? Because we all want the carryover, right? It goes back to what we said about Joshua.
Sometimes you need a reset button.
Sometimes God says,
you got to unplug it,
right.
Restart.
That's exactly right.
Factory data reset.
But do we teach people that? Nope. If we came back from the dead, we would go, well, pick up your life where you left it. What if God doesn't want you to pick up your life where
like if you're frozen
you
and you need to restart. Maybe you're stuck.
See?
Maybe you're so stuck that you can't do anything and God needs to...
See, now we're thinking.
Pull plug.
Now we're thinking on the same page.
That's a whole nother video.
There you go. Now we're on the same page. Right now you understand. So now you have to go back and retract. Who cares? Because it matters. You just made a video out of that. All right, are we gonna wrap up this part and finish this next time?
Yeah, I guess I'll wrap it up. You make me wrap it up.
Beautiful.
I always want to say seedlings, saplings, date nighters. Let God declare what is dead. He does bring people back from the dead. I have attempted to pray 2 people back from the dead in my life so far. There will be more, I'm sure. I have attempted it twice. It did not happen. But God made sure to tell me both times why it didn't happen. And it wasn't because it wasn't an option or I didn't pray right or anything like that. He told me why. So just you have to just simply believe. It is a thing. It is true. Don't let it be done until God says, like, nope, here's your... And he'll tell you. If you have that much faith that you're praying for that, for real, he's not going to just leave you hanging and leave you wondering, like, what happened and let your faith, like, diminish. He'll talk to you. Ask him what's going on. Or even if you should pray for it, you can ask him and say, like, is this in your will? Is this the thing? Like, should I pray for this? Because I want it. It's very selfish sometimes, but just believe. That's it. Just believe and let God declare what is dead and when it's dead. We love you guys. Have a great Friday night with Jesus and whoever else you are with. See you next week.